There's a few more people coming in, so the screen is almost full.
I know. It's good.
30 so far. I think I can hold 40 on a screen. So, but this is a quarterly meeting, so it should have this many people. Here, get back in the picture. So I think at the last quarterly meeting, I didn't have my wired connection up to this desktop computer yet. So there was always a little bit more of a lag when I talked or showed something. Hopefully that'll be better this time, even though I've got a lot of stuff going on. A lot of windows open. This is like making popcorn, as I think I mentioned before. You know, you can time when your popcorn is done by counting 3 seconds between the last pops. 12,001, 1,002, 1,003. I think our popcorn is done. So, welcome everyone to the June 2022 quarterly card meeting with EGLE, more EGLE people present. So we hope to get a lot done today. There's been some new developments and a lot of activity. So let's get on with it. I will point out that this meeting is being recorded. It will be posted to YouTube. If there's something that somebody wants to say, we can turn off the video for that period of time, or we can edit it out later before we share it with the public. So with that in mind, I'm going to share my screen so I can bring up the agenda. I'm doing a little bit of adjustment here. Shows. So again, welcome. I'm going to hand it over to Beth now for approval of the May minutes.
Hey, thank you, Roger. Yes, the approval of the May minutes is a vote for the board. That's all had seen this. It's also in our agenda if anyone else would like to view the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those?
So
May
moved.
minutes? Thank you. And supported?
Support.
Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And just another note before I turn it back to Roger or over to Jack. If anyone is not on the email list and would like to be, please private message me in the chat your email. And if I don't see your full name on there and you want credit for attending this, please let me know also. Thank you.
Okay, Jack, I think I'll turn it over for you for the going through the agenda here.
All right, thank you. Before I dive into item 3 and all of its subparts, I do want to draw everybody's attention to the motion by the intervening plaintiffs for a show cause order that Beth kindly distributed. It's a well-written document. The motion itself has a nice narrative where it sets out the basic background on this case and the 2 pending appeals. I would note that this motion to try to implement the court's June 1st order was filed by the interveners, not the state. I don't know why that is, but certainly that's going to be one of the concerns that the polluter is going to raise later on, that they don't believe the interveners have the authority to enforce the court's order. We obviously disagree, but it would certainly be great if the state stepped in as a party in support of this motion. Part of that good narrative is describing the two pending appeals. The polluter appealed from the June 1st order, first by right, and that was denied by the Court of Appeals and has subsequently been denied by the Supreme Court. But they also filed an appeal by leave, and that appeal by leave was granted on kind of a narrow set of issues. They sought a stay of the court's order, and Court of Appeals denied most of the stay. They did stay the quarterly meetings that we're so interested in, but otherwise they refused to exclude the interveners as parties, and they allow the implementation of the court's cleanup order to proceed. And so this motion seeks to instill a little urgency in that cleanup. So I encourage you to read that and the exhibits. So then now moving on to old business. Perhaps Dan could tell us if there's been any progress on obtaining any information from the polluter.
No, no, there has not been any change from last month. If you remember last month, I identified that, you know, normally the next step to get data would be to bring action, the state would bring action in circuit court under Part 201 to compel compliance for the information. But because of the appeal that Jack, you just mentioned, that's still in place, a part of the appeal that's still in place, you know, that the AG has identified that during this time, you know, mending orders like releasing information or compelling information to be released that has a confidentiality agreement as, you know, part of this court action, they can't do that right now. So it's not that we aren't going to pursue that, it's just we aren't going to pursue it at this time. And we'll, when that appeal is reconciled, then we will take a look at requesting the information that has not been provided yet. That some of the information under the confidentiality agreement, the team, the intervener team, the EGLE team, you know, has seen that data, but there is other data that we would be requesting. So it's really no change from last month.
So I'm curious about that, because the intervener's motion to show cause notes that only one aspect of this litigation has been stayed pending appeal, and that aspect is the quarterly hearings and changes to the remedial actions, not the confidentiality agreement, not the status of the interveners. And so I'm curious as to where this idea that that narrow stay somehow affects all actions by the trial court. Is there anybody here that can opine on that?
Let me just jump in quickly. And I don't have the court rule on the tip of my tongue. You know, it's like I last looked at it, you know, many months ago, but it's part of the appellate rules of the court, you know, the court rules appellate sections. And it basically says that a court cannot modify its orders while they are under appeal. That's basically it.
The number I have that you had given me is Court Rule 7.208.
Sounds right.
But it's my understanding that the confidentiality order is not subject to any appeal.
It's a part of the case that is the entire case under appeal. It's a part of it. The
So
court
under-
can't modify its orders. It's not just one specific order that would be covered by it.
All righty. Moving on to, well, are there any questions on that? Moving on to 3B. An update on the MS4 violation. I was happy to see the email from Brian Nagel, June 3rd, noting that the state doesn't necessarily agree with Gelman's opinion that the broader litigation about the plume somehow supersedes the MS4 violation. At Mr. Nagel's invitation, I did go back and look at the March card meeting video, and I continue to understand Mr. Nagel's statements as being other than what he says in his email. But if his most recent email is the position that he's taking, I'm happy to see that. Can we expect any action from the state with regard to the MS4 violations?
Well, first, we are, what Gelman has done, as I've said the last meeting, is they have changed the submittal from an MS4 work plan that we were working with to Evan Pratt, who is the permit holder, who would bring action against Gelman related to the MS4. They changed that and submitted a GSI work plan. So the state is reviewing that GSI work plan under Part 201. We have sent it through several reviews, several technical committees that we have for review of the GSI, including the GSI TAPS team. And we have been working with our sister agency, WRD, to evaluate that GSI work plan. And and we have where we are now is we have developed a draft response to that GSI work plan. But in talking with Gelman, as this process is going along, we have committed to meeting with them again here by the end of the month. That would be to discuss the issues of GSI and the MS4. Our evaluation, was really response is really going to be how do you comply with both issues back to Gelman. And so we will be meeting with Gelman here, I believe the latest is the last week in June sometime. And with that'll be RRD, the GSI, RRD for GSI, the GSI evaluation, WRD that will assist Evan in running the MS4 issues, and then Evan, as the permit holder, and Gelman. And then after that meeting here, we will formalize a reply for the GSI work plan. And again, I want to make clear that our reply will identify how to comply with both issues. So that's the latest.
Yeah, so this is Josh. I just also want to emphasize that regardless of any opinions on the nexus that individuals may have on the nexus between Part 31, Part 201, and MS4, we are working on a response, and our goal is compliance with both programs. So that's what we're working towards. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that is what we are working towards.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. This is Kathy Griswold. You said compliance with, and then I didn't hear the next two words.
With both the programs.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
MS4, 201. So that's our goal.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Vince.
I think he's muted.
For
Vince,
some
I
reason,
can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Vince.
But no, he's unmuted and You might need to sign off and sign back on.
Try signing off and signing back in, and we're going to call on Ralph in your absence. Go ahead, Ralph.
Or just test your mic. Maybe did you get the wrong mic setting?
Go ahead, Ralph.
I just have a question of ignorance, I guess. Can Jack, I wasn't familiar or hadn't seen this June 3rd email can you just describe it in a brief sense so that those of us who have not seen that would know what it says? Because that seems to me a fairly major change in position from the last time this was discussed.
So Mr. Nagel addressed this to Mr. Bicknell and copied a number of people, apparently not you, and suggests that Mr. Bicknell had made several mischaracterizations regarding his prior statements. And then there were some bullet points. He notes that Gelman's transmittal letter does not represent any form of a legal agreement binding the state, Washtenaw County, or Gelman regarding how the infiltration into the Allen Creek drain must be addressed. The second bullet point, the quote attributed to Mr. Nagel regarding the letter does not accurately represent what he said during the March card meeting. I invite everybody to go back and listen to his statement in that meeting. But the recording of the meeting is readily available and shows that that he in fact said, quote, the letter does not accurately describe the three lawyers' agreement of the interaction between part 201 and part 31. And it goes on after that. And then the third bullet point is, at no point did I, Mr. Nagel, direct Mr. Pratt not to follow up on his notice of violation to Gelman. So those are
Okay.
3 points of good news, in my opinion, and I'm glad that they're in writing and that they're available to all of us. And so I'll make sure that you get a copy of that.
Thank you
I'll
much.
just interject here that that letter was sent to Card Court, and I think Ralph, you are on the court.
Okay, then I missed it. Then
So you might want to look in your.
I'll look.
Search for Card Court for that date.
There's been a lot of email traffic, and so
I may not have seen it, and I apologize for that. I didn't mean to disrupt the meeting over that, but I would have a follow-up comment, I guess.
Go ahead.
And that is that I think my memory of the other meetings where this was discussed is that, and I think it also might have been in an agenda, that we were essentially asking for more detail as to what EGLE's position really was on this matter. And it sounds to me like that might be fluid at this point based on what Mr. Nagel and Mr. Moser already said today. But I'd be very curious about that, because I would embellish that by saying that I really do think that this issue should go to the highest levels of both of your offices, including the Attorney General herself. And I think the reason for that is that Gelman's position, in essence, is that our current state law completely overrides federal regulation. And if you take that interpretation and you could apply that to any EPA reg that exists. And you also, I think, if in a political campaign, if the attorney, and I don't mean to put any more pressure than already exists, but in a political campaign where the Attorney General might want to show aggressive action to control pollution, this issue will maybe determine the level and strength of support in this county, because this is a major issue. You could read Gelman's position as saying, if we have an old court order in place, or if we have this part 201 overrides everything, if that isn't addressed either by the legislature or by some court action, you could effectively be preempting the entire spectrum of EPA or federal regulation of pollutants. And that's a gigantic issue. It's not just this case. it extends to way beyond this case. And that needs to be addressed in some form. And I just can't emphasize that enough. It can't be just a one-off, let's figure out what to do about this. This could be every single thing. And the other item that I would like to point out, without being too harsh about it, is that Gelman's position is that the court order, one of their bases for their position is that the court order allows this. I think Mr. Bicknell correctly pointed out that there are contradictory statements in that order that would conflict with that. And I'm not going to want to get into the weeds of those right now, but I would say this, that in none of the discussions in which EGLE, the Attorney General's office, etc., trumpeted the great effect of this order was this problem mentioned ever, not once. And now, hopefully that's going to be addressed, but this really should have been addressed in all of the colloquy about whether the CJ4 and all of that was a good idea. Because if that order potentially overrides this permit stuff or other federal regulations, that's just a huge problem and never should have been advocated for. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ralph. Go ahead, Dan.
Hi, Jack. As we've been talking here, and people may have been reading what's been stated over the last couple of months. The problem that we have is that this cover letter, which constitutes an agreement between the state AG and Gelman, says that the compliance with the MS4 permit notice of violation can be attained by, as Ralph is saying, and as stated in the documents, by complying with the Part 201 court order. In particular, though, it is stated that if you attain a groundwater surface water interface value of 280 parts per billion prior to the dioxane plume into the Allen Creek drain, that constitutes compliance with the MS4 permit. Well, the MS4 permit is a federally delegated Clean Water Act permit that requires that no dioxane above background concentrations be allowed to infiltrate in the Allen Creek drain. So from a technical perspective, what we're talking about here is allowing Gelman to discharge into Allen Creek drain a 280 parts per billion that is infiltrated into the drain at 280 parts per billion, whereas the Clean Water Act says you can't do that at all. It must be below background levels before the dioxane enters into it. And there was a meeting that we had on August 22nd between EGLE, US EPA, the Assistant AG, and GEA, where EGLE and US EPA representatives responsible for state and federal MS4 permit programs agreed that Gelman must not be allowed to have any dioxane seep into the Allen Creek drain above background levels. And so that presents this dilemma where you now have this understanding that you can have compliance with Part 201 groundwater surface water interface value at 280 under the state law, but the federal requirement is background. And so I think Ralph is very correct that this is not just a one-off issue. It's a program problem that needs to be addressed. And if you're looking at really how to deal with it, I think we need to look at getting the federal government involved in this. This is a federally delegated permit. And it seems like now one of the only and maybe the only remaining viable regulatory option to obtain compliance with this MS4 permit is for the US EPA and the United States Department of Justice to take over the NOV and bring a federal enforcement action case against Gelman, compelling compliance with the MS4 permit. Such an action would rightfully have the federal government manage the correction of this federally delegated MS4 permit violation and not continue to put the compliance oversight on the responsibilities of the local government and citizens, which is what is being done now. So I would just have those observations that this agreement that was gotten into is very flawed, and it again constitutes a basic inconsistency with what's required under state law versus federal law.
Thank you. Go ahead, Vince. Test your sound.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
There you go.
Got it. Thanks so much. Sorry about that. Yeah, thanks, Dane Bicknell. I think that you make some great points there. I think in the April meeting, we had EGLE say that they would work with the county and the city, since the county and the city of Ann Arbor did not approve of Gelman using the Allens Creek as a conduit to the Huron River. And yet that's exactly what's happening right now, as we have 1,4 dioxin streaming through the groundwater and the Allens Creek water drain to the Huron River at as high as 49 part per billion in recent past. We have health effects relating to that. We have property values related to that. And who's responsible for that? If EGLE steps away, even though there was comments in April that EGLE would work with the city and the county to deal with this situation and get Gelman to comply with the Ms4 violation and remediate that, who's responsible for damages to the city and to the neighborhood and to the community and the health effects? I think this is not a minor issue. This is a major issue. The west side of Ann Arbor has a lot of wet basements. We've submitted articles that propose a standard for 1,4 dioxin with very detailed analysis. And I think we need to deal with this and not just keep kicking it down the road. This is a major issue for the west side of Ann Arbor. Thanks.
Jack, you're muted.
Kathy?
Go ahead, Kathy.
Yes, I just want to give some positive information and a little background. For those who are relatively new to CARD, the Ms4 permit is held by Washtenaw County. And it wasn't until approximately a year ago at CARD's urging that I introduced a resolution to Ann Arbor City Council, and it was passed unanimously, as I remember, encouraging the Washtenaw County Drain Commissioner to take action regarding what was perceived as a violation of the Ms4 permit. And that started this process. I also want to tell you that even though Ann Arbor is not a party to this Ms4 permit violation, the new city attorney, who comes to us with extensive international business experience, has been reading up on this and is committed to addressing this issue as well. So yes, I think everyone should be clapping. We have someone who I think will be a good match for Gelman, and we will not continue to have these long discussions and infinite loops. I think we're going to get some issues addressed, and so this is really good news.
Thank you, Kathy, both for your comment and your work on council on our behalf.
I would like to hear EGLE's response to my comments regarding who's responsible and are they going to work with the city and the county?
Yeah, I can respond to that, Vince. I mean, like we said, I mean, our response, I understand what Gelman said, I understand what the letter said. I don't necessarily agree with, anything being a binding agreement, but right now, our review of the GSI Work Plan, our intention is to respond with the information necessary to comply with the GSI and Ms4 requirements. That's what we're working towards. That's our goal. That's the path that EGLE is on.
So when Dan Hamel said that he would work with the city and the county if they in fact did not approve of Gelman using the Allens Creek drain or our groundwater, basically, as a conduit to the Huron River, that the EGLE has pulled back from that and will not be working with the county and the city to force Gelman to stop illegally using the Allen's Creek drain and our groundwater at great risk to the city and residents and businesses of Ann Arbor.
Yeah, I don't know that I said that. What we're doing is we're trying to assure that the work and the remedy comply, with what our Water Resources Division believes is necessary to meet the MS4 requirement compliance.
So who is responsible for the contamination? Is it Gelman or is it going to be EGLE if somebody were to file suit and ask for damages?
Well, I'm not going to opine on something that
Again, I'll
happened.
I'll remind us not to ask EGLE staff to make legal opinions.
Yeah, I'm telling you what we're doing from a regulatory standpoint at this point. What may happen in the future, I'm not going to opine on. So our goal is to make sure that the work plan is compliant with Part 2 GSI program and the MS4 compliance.
All right. Go ahead, Eric.
I just have a quick question. I'm sorry. I know that the Allen Creek drain is now receiving groundwater contaminated with dioxane. Is there also water being discharged after treatment by Gelman into the Allen Creek drain?
No, not at that location. The treatment system that Gelman utilizes for groundwater treatment, is discharged on to the west of Wagner Road to the unnamed tributary of Honey Creek, and flows then to Honey Creek and then to the Huron. So there is no treatment and discharge into the Allen drain within the city limits there.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comment on 3B?
Well, there is Gelman contamination getting into the Allen's Creek. There's no question about that. I think everybody's agreed that that is actually happening. It's an indirect use of the Allen's Creek. That's, in my opinion, is not legal. So,
Already, I don't think you're going to find disagreement here. I'm going to move on to 3C and ask Patti to give us an update if there is anything to report.
Yes, we did have a resident reach out to us the middle of May for a wet basement on Maple Ridge, and we sampled and it was non-detect.
All right. Any questions on this subject?
Can I just go back and ask Vince, what's the source? How is Gelman putting contaminated water into the Allen Creek drain?
so the groundwater is now contaminated flowing through Ann Arbor.
Right.
At 49 part per billion, the highest number we detected. It's leaching into the Allen Creek pipe. It is flowing through the Allen Creek pipe to the Huron River. And like I said, at 49 part per billion. Now 100 part per billion in somebody's basement could be a real problem. So we're not, we're playing with fire here. And I think most people don't understand that this could be a real problem for the west side of Ann Arbor because we have a lot of groundwater very close to the surface. In fact, West Park has shut down the band shell because of the high groundwater in that area is undermining that foundation. So they're shutting down a major fixture in the city of Ann Arbor because of the groundwater issue in the west side area. So we have a lot of basements that are wet that could be contaminated, and the contaminated water contaminated groundwater gets into their basement, evaporates, and exposes the residents to 1,4-dioxane in their basement, in a play space, in a workroom, in a bedroom. People use their basements extensively all through Ann Arbor because of the high value of the properties. Thanks.
With regard to the Allen Creek pipe, there is dioxin in the groundwater, and it's making slow progress towards the river. As soon as it infiltrates the Allen Creek pipe, it's like jumping onto a superhighway, and it has a direct route to the river. And so our concern is that the amount of dioxin in the Allen Creek pipe exceeds the MS4 permit, and the polluter should be held responsible for adding that water into our stormwater system, because it's just such a quick route to the river. Go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, and just to not do anything, when you see the red, towards Vets Park, to not do anything just is gonna keep sending those higher concentrations down to the conduit, the Allen Creek pipe, down into the river. So yeah,
And
it's something needs to be done.
nobody's approved this.
Yep. No, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, Jack. The basic problem is, again, the MS4 permit does not allow any dioxane above background levels to be infiltrated into that Allen Creek drain. Otherwise, it's a violation of law, and that's where we are.
Yep, I understand that too. Thank you so much. So then I'm going to move on to the next item, and it's Patti again on the Sentinel Well program. Do you have anything to report today on that?
Just a little bit of information. So we did close the bid process. I was not there for the bid opening. I've been out of town quite a bit the last month. So we will be selecting a contractor, and hopefully it's going to council the beginning of July.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Any questions on this from anybody? Seeing none, I'm going to move on. So is there anyone here from the Dingle office or the EPA that wants to talk about the Superfund site designation process?
Yeah, I can comment on that unless EPA is on and has more info. I'm waiting on an update. I thought I was going to get one this morning from EPA. That hasn't come in yet, but if I get that, I will speak up and let you guys know. Otherwise, Mrs. Dingle is scheduled for a full briefing from EPA sometime in the next 2 weeks on their status, where they're at with Superfund. So next month should be a pretty significant update on that.
Well, thank you very much on that. We look forward to getting word on that update, and please send our regards to Congresswoman. We appreciate everything she does on this matter. Dan, did you have anything that you wanted to say about the Superfund process?
This Dan? Me?
No, I'm sorry, Dan Bicknell. Too many Dans
Okay.
in the room.
Jack, yeah, I think where we are, remember, is that we're doing, I'll call it the second step, the site investigation step. And in that site investigation step, US EPA is collecting approximately 30 soil, groundwater, surface water type samples to confirm the past data that's been collected by Gelman and EGLE. Make sure that essentially that the data that's been collected in the past is good quality. And from that, they will then generate a hazardous ranking score. And that hazardous ranking score will determine whether Gelman may be able to become a US EPA Superfund site. They did a preliminary hazardous ranking score back in 2017 and found that the Gelman site did at that time qualify to move forward with the designation process. If this hazardous ranking score, which should probably be done in late fall, and they that the Gelman site could become a US EPA Superfund site, they will then put in the Federal Register their intent to make the Gelman site into a US EPA, some call it a National Priorities List site, and that'll be in the Federal Register for approximately 60 days. Afterwards, they'll look at the public comments and make a final decision whether the Gelman site should be a US EPA Superfund site.
Thank you so much. So it's mostly a waiting process.
So what's the timeline, Dan?
Well, hopefully they complete all of their field work this summer, and then they do the hazardous ranking score in the fall and make a decision before the end of the year, I would think. on whether this should be a Superfund site or not. And then they're obligated to, let's say at the beginning of the year, put in the Federal Register their intent. And then there's a 60-day public comment period. And of course, they're going to have to review the public comments. So that's probably another 60, 90 days before they make their final decision whether this should be a Superfund site or not.
Thank you.
Yeah, and they usually do that, just so everyone knows, about twice a year, in the spring and in the fall. They tend not to do them just individually as they come. They do them, they lump them, and then they'll do one in like March and then one September, October. So if they're done by the end of the year, could be in the Federal Register by March, potentially.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other hands raised, I'm going to move on to the next thing. I'm going to ask Brian Nagel to give us an give us an update on the status of the appeal from the June 1st order. Is there anything to report?
I didn't know I was on the agenda. We'll have oral argument on July 7th.
Oh, excellent.
That's the update.
All right. And in the past, at meetings that you haven't been at, we've sought access to the briefs that have been filed in that matter, both from the polluter, the state, and the interveners. Is there an easy way to access that?
I can tell you that we have been compiling those legal documents based upon those discussions in the CARD meetings, interim CARD meetings between the quarterlies. And we have compiled a big portion of those, including the latest, and are still planning to post those to the webpage. As I have given last month, we have a new platform. The webpage has been moved to a new platform, and so that moving of the webpage to that new platform has taken up a lot of time for the people that post the information that I send. So we are closer to posting those. I cannot give you a time frame, but it is a large quantity of the legal documents that will be posted here in the near future. I'm thinking sometime this summer, early fall, to the webpage, to the new table that's on the webpage that contains all of the documents that we have currently have on the webpage. So yeah, it is, it's staff time because of the movement of all state web pages to the new platform. We just haven't had time to get the Gelman legal documents up and running yet, but it's moving forward, and I'm anticipating. My plan is to, as soon as I'm told, and I'm told when documents are going to be posted, as soon as I'm told, I will send it to Beth to let the CARD core group that at this, we anticipate at this date, this time, that these documents will be posted. And they'll be posted under Roger has the table up right from the web page right now, and to the left there's where it has selected documents. Will be posted under a category called legal. There's legal documents. If you go up and scroll down the menu, there you can search under the term legal documents, and there it is. It's legal, and so that's where these will be identified as.
Thank you so much. But you're satisfied that you have all the briefs and we're just waiting for them to be posted?
Right. We have to, yes, we have to wait for them to be posted. They have to be manipulated a little bit. We, as a state agency, we have to make documents ADA compliant. We also have to then shrink the title. We have to name things with a minimum number of characters, if you want to say so. To be efficient, we have to change the title so it's not this huge big title. So you can, as these titles show, you can see what it is quickly in the limited space under the name. So that takes time, but one of the biggest issues is just we have switched to a new platform, and there's problems, always little speed bumps with these when switching, and we're working all that out. And then I post this, the legal documents isn't everything. As every month I post the database, all the documents monthly I receive, the sampling analysis reports that I receive from Gelman. So that is also being fed into the group that posts these for us. So it's you know, there's a lot of information.
Thank you. Michael, go ahead.
Do I understand from this last 2 or 3 comments that in fact there's oral arguments on July 7th, but it seems impossible for the state to post the briefs for these upcoming arguments in time that we'd be able to see them before July 7th? And if that's the case, cannot one of the interveners simply post them? This doesn't seem like a monumental task to me.
Right. The other groups that have all the documents, the interveners teams, legal teams have all the documents too. So, you know, we are going to post them on the webpage, but I want to manage expectations. I don't believe it'll be by the July 7th.
Right. Anything else on this item? I'm going to turn our attention to item G. Kathy, do you have anything to report on?
Regarding the posting, could CARD post all of these legal documents? And if not, if someone can give them to me or give me a list of what they are, I will take that action item, because for the sake of transparency, I really think that we need to have the documents available, not only for us, but for the public.
Yeah, Jack, didn't I give you most of the documents?
Most, yeah.
If not all.
I don't think I have anything from the Attorney General's office. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I have anything from the polluter. I would have to go back and look at my files. I do recall that I looked at the list of documents that have been filed according to the Court of Appeals docket, and I didn't have everything there. But I will try to get that list to Kathy Griswold, and maybe she can forward them. We're under no obligation to follow the accessibility rule, so we could probably post them sooner. Go ahead, Beth.
Well, I'm just a little worried that I might be tasked with this and they're all very large. Like, the idea of having them posted on a website is so much easier because people can pull up the ones they're curious to read. If I'm tasked with emailing everybody every legal document for this brief.
Oh, we're not going to ask you to do that.
Okay.
Go ahead. Okay. Roger, you have your hand up?
Yeah, because I can't find where to raise hand while I'm presenting. CARD can certainly have a list of those, which we do once we get them from the state.
Okay.
Now the problem, if you start posting on your own, is that then the problem becomes with matching up the names, because there is no standard way. As you could see when I was sharing the EGLE website, if you the only, when you look under legal, you might see 20 documents for 2021, and there's no gradation by date. They're not even necessarily in order. So the problem with, if we start posting, you're going to get duplicates because they're going to be named something different. There's no standard name. Now, I would task the intervener lawyers to come up with some naming conventions for their briefs, where they will stay in chronological order and use that order on anything that EGLE posts. And then if there's holes in it, we can post the ones that are missing and have a complete list. The data, we have the similar problem with naming conventions.
Okay.
On the data and the well locations. And as this goes on for years and years, this is becoming more and more important, where you don't want to have duplicate records and you don't want to miss out on any of the, you don't want to have holes in the data. You don't want to have holes in the motions and things. So that's what I want to say on that, is that we can do it, but it's going to be it's going to be a task that is going to be a problem until we have some systematic thinking about how these things get posted. And right now, they're not posted systematically.
Okay,
That's all.
go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, I apologize. I should have probably said posting the links, definitely not the actual documents. I will take the action item to try to get the links and maybe have city staff provide a list so that it's easy to find all of the legal documents that are related to the oral arguments on July 7th. I'm not a lawyer, but that's what I was thinking, that there would be one place where you could go and see all the documents that are supporting these oral arguments. Does that seem reasonable?
Well, it seems to me that we could temporarily post these documents, and then when they're on the EGLE site, we could remove them from our site and resort to their naming conventions. It really is the issue of it's not going to be available to us before the oral argument, so we'll have no idea what's going on. So maybe we can work on this offline.
Yeah, I would think get some of the lawyers who are on the screen to weigh in on what should be in the title of the legal documents as they get posted.
All righty. With that, I'm going to move on to the next item.
Can I clarify one thing?
Sure.
I thought I heard Brian say the oral arguments were on June 16th. I don't know where July 7th came from. Maybe I missed something.
Say that date again.
June 16th was what I thought I heard. So then somebody said July 7th.
There's two things happening,
Okay.
I believe. Brian.
Yeah, I'm sorry, trying to unmute. The motion to show cause is the June date.
Yeah.
Oh.
And July 7th is for oral argument in the Court of Appeals.
Okay, thank you.
And just let me look at my, yep, that's right.
And I could add that the Court of Appeals arguments are going to be in person in Lansing. I have asked if there's going to be a Zoom connection option, and Bill Stapleton is looking into it. I don't know the answer right now.
Righty, but you'll let us know on that.
I will.
So I'm going to move on to item G. Actually, we've done the H. Is there any news on the Knights of Columbus property?
Well,
No,
I didn't do G.
Yeah.
So I can report that we expect to have data to announce in the near future on our most recent well testing. Homeowners will be notified of the testing results first before this information is made public. And on the Knights of Columbus, there's no new information.
All right.
And I will be given the Scioto Township information. As soon as I'm given that, I will start the process of posting it on the EGLE webpage and incorporating it into the EGLE access database, and then which then will be incorporated into the interactive GIS interactive web map.
Okay. Go ahead, Dan.
I understand that the Scioto Township wells have been sampled and the paste results have been in. And right now, the residents who had their wells sampled are being informed of the results. And once the residents who had their wells sampled understand their results, then the data will be made public.
Yep. I think that's what Kathy said.
Yeah, I just said that.
Kind of, but the results are back.
Okay.
Results are in.
But they're not public until the homeowners get notice. Go ahead, Vince.
I just would like to remind people that we're looking at 0.3 something part per billion as a dangerous level for drinking water according to the Environmental Working Group. And EPA has a advisory or something similar to that for 0.35 part per billion.
I want to point out, though, the state of Michigan criteria is 7.2 parts per billion, and that's what we regulate to. The EGLE regulates the Gelman site to currently.
Alrighty. You still have your hand up, Vince.
Roger's got his hand up too.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Roger.
I just had a quick question for Kathy. Since it turns out I'm one of the properties that got tested, how many properties were there that were sampled? And how many had levels of detect?
Okay. Roger, why don't we talk privately later? I am not at liberty to disclose the information right now because, you know, it's not out there yet. The letters to the residents have not gone out yet.
Well, but we don't have to know every single one, but do we know how many were tested?
There were 30 tested, Roger.
Okay. Do you know the results, Dan?
Gee, Dan.
The results are not going to be made public, as Kathy is saying, until all the residents are notified and Scioto Township sends out a notice.
And are the notices going to be sent by email or by mail?
Mail.
Did we not provide email addresses?
I don't know.
Because it seems like you'd want to know sooner rather than later.
I agree.
Thank you.
Seeing no further hands, I'm going to move on from G and H. Beth, do you have anything to report on alternative water sources for Ann Arbor?
No, I haven't heard anything. Has anyone else? Any updates from anyone? No. Oh, Jeff?
I would just like to say again that in the last year, we've committed several $1 million to planning for a $110 million redo of our water treatment facilities here in the city. And I have zero interest in switching over to a system. And Brian Stiglitz has commented that it would take a year to do the switch and mix all the water types through our plumbing and so on if we went to the Great Lakes Water Authority. And it's not in the cards for our community. I think it's I don't even know where this effort is coming from. And I'll do everything I can to fight it because we need to maintain our water autonomy here in the city. I do not want to be part of the Great Lakes Water Authority. If we're gonna spend $110 million on a water treatment plant, then we're gonna turn around and float other communities' debt as part of a collective. I don't think that's the right path for our community. I think the right path is to accelerate this cleanup and prepare for the inevitable treatment at our water treatment facility, which is my understanding is that's part of the massive expense of this reconfiguration is leaving room in the treatment train for the advanced oxidation and so on that is eventually going to become necessary as we basically, I'm not going to say we're sitting on our hands about this Gelman because I know we're all doing things, but and more than ever, but I think it's inevitable that at some point that's going to be getting into our system into Barton and we're going to have to treat it at the facility and we need to be prepared for that. I'm not going to support a switch and I hope nobody else does either. It's the last thing we want to do is be part of the Great Lakes Water Authority.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Go ahead, Vince.
Thanks. Thanks, Jeff, for that. I think, unfortunately, I look and see the City of Ann Arbor and the University of Michigan pushing very hard for very tall buildings and a huge increase in population in Ann Arbor. And I'm not sure our water source can handle that. I'm not supportive of that in general because of quality of life issues, but the city seems to be hell-bent on, and the University of Michigan wants to increase their enrollment 10,000-fold that we're going to have to deal with that if we continue on the path we're at right now. Thanks.
All right. Go ahead, Derek. You're mute.
I certainly agree with Jeff and Vince on that. And it's funny though, as Jeff alluded, the big barrier for the city is not technical, it's that financial, that the Great Lakes Water Authority is absorbing the debt for Highland Park or Hamtramck or something. So they've got this giant zero payment on their ledger that is a major problem economically.
All righty, thank you. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dan Hamel for the EGLE update. And either Dan can moderate his own, the comments from the crowd, or I can do that for him. I don't care, but go ahead.
Okay, I have just an update on the implementation of the response activity order where we are currently. I'm kind of split it off into the western area, which is the first discussion will be in the western area, which is west of Wagner Road. They are, Roger, is there a way for me to share my screen? I think it would be beneficial. I have a figure from the, that has locate, is there some way to?
I'm going to make you
I
a
have
co-host. I'm going to make you a co-host so you can make co-host. You can share.
I think it would be much more beneficial for people rather, I can verbalize.
I'm going to stop my share so you can share your screen.
Okay, so I'm gonna, so I can share my down the green arrow up, right? And
you go to share screen and then you pick the window that you want to share.
And then hit share, right? Are you seeing a map of the area?
Yep.
Okay. This is the map of that is in the response activity order. This is monitoring well locations and then the extraction well locations across the site. I will show another map once I start discussing the on-site work. As I've said in the past, Gelman has initiated installation of monitoring wells, and as you can see here, in the western area, they have these monitoring wells installed and are starting to sample those. And at each of these locations, there's anywhere from 1 to 3 monitoring wells clusters, different vertical locations. And as I said, they are sampling these, and I am including these in the in my monthly access database, monthly updates. They're in the monthly reports, laboratory reports that I post for Gelman. And so where we are currently, there are 2 locations, this location I and J, that they have not acquired access. These are private properties. They have been trying to acquire access, and the property owners have not been real receptive to granting access for installation of these 2 locations here. These locations that were all negotiated as part of the negotiations with Gelman, the interveners, and EGLE. So these are important locations, we think, related to the Elizabeth Road up here, which we know there's concentrations, and then the new sampling in Cityof Township up to the north here. So we are working, we have committed to work with Gelman as the regulator. In fact, they have given out, they're talking with the private property owners and have given them my name to if they have any questions. But they haven't acquired the access here, so there's no monitor wells installed at these locations yet. So and then the other on the eastern area, these are the proposed locations. They have installed this monitoring well PG boundary well. They have access to this location here, but they are acquiring or working with the City of Ann Arbor to get the rest of these locations here and want to have them all in place so that once they mobilize with their drill rig, with their subcontractor, that they can move from location to location without jumping back and forth and mob and demobbing. And then that'll include this location. And then as part of that access with the City of Ann Arbor, the Rosewell area here is a remediation area that the Rosewell will be installed. And again, they're getting right-of-way access for the infrastructure, the piping needed to hook that system up. Once they have that all in place, then they will start the installation of the Rosewell.
Can I just say something, Ralph McGee? Could you mute your mic, please? Thanks.
Do you want me, because I'm jumping around I probably will ask Kathy, you have a question on, as of this figure? Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, so I had questions about the western area. As that I understood it, is it one or two of the extraction wells that are due to be put in the source area that are not in yet? How many are we waiting for in the source area?
Okay, I haven't moved to that part yet. Let me finish this up, and okay, then I'll do a new figure, and it'll be right. It'll be a close up of that. So that's that's kind of what I was planning on doing. But if you can hold off for a little bit, I will be able to show in a figure a good answer to your question. Over in the western area, there's also a GSI investigation that has been initiated. There was a Western Area GSI Work Plan. It is a GSI related to the unnamed trib and along in the marshy area by the property. Let me go ahead and change figures here.
And
yes,
I have just one question about the two blue sites on the west that they won't allow access to, or they're negotiating. Are those residential or commercial?
Those are commercial along Jackson.
Ah,
so
okay.
I will tell you that again, they're trying to get mutually agreeable access agreements, but under Part 201 and under a response activity order, if they can, Gelman can go to request court relief, relief in the court of going through the court to get access. So that, they aren't there yet. They're still, again, the best access is a mutually agreeable access. So and EGLE will help out as a regulator with any explanation of why these are important locations and everything. So I had Rita had her hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Could you say again who is doing the negotiation with those two property owners?
What's the Gelman themselves? I'm sure they're legal representatives.
Uh-huh.
And
okay, is that usual? Is it usual for the polluter to be responsible for that action?
Yes, that's normal with any liable party. I mean, we request them to, they have to do the investigations. They need to get the access to do that. So this is not outside of what is normally done in the industry.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and actually the statute actually dictates that and provides for that and gives them authority to petition the court for access. So it's their responsibility.
Okay, it's almost like though that they almost have no incentive either. So interesting. Okay, thank you.
Well, and if I can interrupt, one of those sites is the old Bellmark lanes, I believe. And it's clear, they just clear cut every tree that was on the site. They've leveled everything. So I don't know why they aren't able to get a location of when this new dealer, another car dealer, yay.
Well, that's the status. I don't really know any of the specifics on who they're, and I know that they have said, it's not the people that are at that address. It's the corporate, the corporate legal team that, they have to interface, the corporate owner type thing, for a commercial property. So.
Well, like I said, I could see it when you said that like 3 or 4 months ago when the property wasn't being developed, but the new owner is already developing it. So there's got to be some way to figure out where they are able to put a monitoring well on the car dealer impervious surface somewhere.
Again, I don't disagree with you, but that's the current situation that I've been informed of. Again, we're not, as a regulator, we're not going to go into, and because we're a regulator, and we will assist in answering information from property owners on why, where, what we want, and make recommendations of why they, should grant access. But we're not.
But after what point of time will you regulate this or try to enforce it, since we're testing now just north of there? Like these are pretty important wells.
Yes, they are important locations. At what point in time, again, as the regulator, we're not going to get, the court has the response, has ordered a Gelman to implement the response activity order. There is relief in court. Gelman can go to the court and ask that they be granted access for legal reasons because of the response activity order. That has not happened yet, and I don't have a time frame for that. So
Yeah, but just so everybody understands, this is Josh again. There are timeframes within the consent or within the order that dictate when it is necessary after best efforts to get voluntary access. There are, I don't have them in my head, but there are timeframes in our orders that say within X amount of days or months that Gelman shall petition the court for access or be subject to penalties under the order. So there are timeframes in there. I don't know if Dan has them at his fingertips either, but just.
I don't have them on the top of my head,
but the first step is that does allow a time frame for seeking voluntary access.
Okay. Anybody else have, Roger, you had a question related to the monitoring wells, and you had your hand up?
Yeah. It turns out location I looks like it overlaps with existing monitoring wells, MW40 S and D.
It does. And location I, if you look in the response activity order itself, is only going to have one well, and it fills in a gap that relates to those other wells, previously installed wells, a vertical gap. So it'll have one well location there, and not a cluster. They will drill. They will drill and install, like I said, one well there.
Okay, but are they going to drill like they're supposed to bedrock and sample every 10 feet where they can, all the way down to bedrock?
They will do that at location J. It's been a while since I looked at the verbiage. I do not believe they are required to go to bedrock on that shallow well or the one well location.
So do you think I will be a deeper or intermediate or shallower than the two wells that are there?
I didn't, it's been too long, and I don't recall off the top of my head of what the estimated depth, the vertical depth is going to be as it relates to the existing monitoring wells, 40 whatever they are there. So I would have to, I'll take a look at that and come back if these questions again for next month.
Well, if there's no vertical sampling to bedrock in that area, how are they making that decision? Why are they deciding?
Well, that's a decision again related to the other two wells that are in close, is that we have information for those other two wells. We had questions about an interval that was potentially not covered. And so that's what was negotiated in the response activity to order that, that location, and we would fill that gap in.
Right,
there.
but what I'm asking for is the information that led to that decision.
Roger, that was part of the negotiations. I don't recall the technical details. I'd have to go back and check out what the discussions were, or try to recollect what the discussions were.
But
that's where we are now.
Was it based on actual data from some vertical sampling?
It was based on data that we had available during the negotiations. Again,
so that data
specific.
should be shared then.
So what was, I didn't hear you.
That data should be shared since the decision seems like it was already made. You should share the data that decision was based on.
That data, is available on the webpage. I'd have to go back and get the specifics, what data was utilized. So,
yeah, and this relates back to NW 146, which of course did find vertical sampling at more than one layer, and then didn't screen at where there was some dioxane found. And
again, that was in the response activity order. That was what negotiated.
But again, the decision was already made, and apparently they don't care that there's dioxane heading toward people's wells north of that could be sampled. I'm just saying, it's better to have decisions based on fact, on reality, and have data
and Roger,
that reality.
I pointed that out.
Well, that's the way the negotiators came up with it, so we have to live with it. But let's look at reality and make decisions based on reality. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
But we can't fault Dan.
Right. I told them when we had that 146, I said, hey, we found some there, and it's, I think we should install the monitoring well. And again, they said, basically, well, this is what's negotiated. This is what we are going to do right now. If something in the future, Roger, points that there's a risk, then EGLE will definitely go back and request and start talking to them about other monitoring wells.
This is how the dioxane happened in the first place, is that things happen and decisions were made without really good data. So I'm not blaming you, Dan. I'm just saying.
I know. I mean, I understand the frustrations.
Modus operandi here to actually deal with reality, not with what Gelman and the company wants. Thank you.
Okay. Like I said, there is a GSI investigation in the Western area. I'm going to change. Did the figure change? A new figure come up for people?
Yes.
Okay. In the Western area, the GSI involves work in the marshy area, which is this location, and what is identified then along the unnamed tributary of Honey Creek. And then there's another location down there, wetland down there, wetland area, the shallow groundwater down near Third Sister Lake. So what this map is identifying is part of the work was started for the GSI investigation in the Western area. There was some sampling over the winter, some pore water sampling because it was frozen. I allowed them to go do pore water along the unnamed tributary, but there's going to be additional, had to be additional work in this area, and they needed a wetlands permit to do that. So they applied for a wetlands permit. We're just issued a wetlands permit from RWRD on beginning of May 3rd. And so they are going to be doing the work here where these borings are. There'll be staff gauges along here. And then at this location too, there'll be borings and staff gauge in Third Sister Lake and gathering of data related to evaluation of GSI in the Western area. So that work has started, and I will keep you up to date on the status of that work.
Dan, let me ask you a few questions about that.
Sure.
Okay, so as I understood it, yes, they've done some preliminary studies, but the vapor extraction and the phytoremediation
again
happened.
Well, Kathy, again, I'm going to move to that. that's the on-site, that's a different, I was talking about the Western and Eastern area GSI. So I'm not trying to be smart, but I think jumping around, let me get through this,
Okay,
get those questions.
I thought when you first started, you were doing the Western area and then you were moving to the Eastern area. So you've kind of jumped around.
Well, I'm doing components of the Western area, the Eastern area, and then what I have identified as the Gelman property area. And I just haven't reached the Gelman property, and that's where all that new work, will be. So if I'm a little bit confusing people, I apologize for that. But let me answer any questions related to the GSI on the Eastern area, on the Western area here. And then I on the Eastern area, I'll go back, we have in the Eastern area, again, we just talked about in the previous bullet that we have a GSI work plan for the Allen Drain area. And I gave you the update of where that stands. And we will be meeting with Gelman here, trying to set it up. The latest is the last week in June. And that'll be RRD, WRD, and then we will finalize and Evan Pratt in Washtenaw County. And finalize our GSI response. And in that response, as Josh has pointed out, that we not only will give requirements for compliance with GSI, but the requirements to comply with the MS4 issue in the Eastern area. So that's where that stands there. Let's see here. I have then I will move to the on-site. Kathy, here's where the on-site work is at Gelman property. We have part of the task is new extraction wells, shallow source area extraction wells in the response activity order. And currently, Gelman has installed 2 of the 3 locations required under the response activity order. Location 24 was really done last summer, and was installed. The well was installed years ago, and but it was converted to a extraction well, and it has been put into the treatment system, plumbed into the treatment system, and that work started in mid-year last year. And so this is being pumped, and the groundwater is treated in their treatment system currently. The new well that was just installed, new extraction well, phase 1 extraction well is this TW25. It's adjacent to the marshy area, and what came online here within the last couple of months. Both of these areas are hotspots. And they, were estimated to be hotspots, and they have concentrations in the several thousand parts per billion of dioxane. So that this TW25 is now up and connected to the system, and so that extracted groundwater is being treated through the Gelman system. The third location was down in this area where. And they've done some test borings down here. And the third location is in an area that is not very conducive to extraction groundwater. It's in the southwest area, as part of the historic locations. So they were not able to find a good location to do an extraction well. They really got less than a gallon a minute, as they tried to test in several test borings. So what they are doing is going to take a look at some of the information they're going to get from their GSI investigation, which I just told you about in this area, and then see if they can come up with an alternative location in this area, or then evaluate and propose to us an alternative location for the third required extraction well on the property area. The response activity order does identify that there is a potential phase 2 extraction wells. It is not a requirement at this point, but they have just, as in the response activity order, these are potential locations of phase 2. And that will be, that decision will be made based upon what kind of a mass, what kind of contamination is being removed by the first 3 required wells. So I foresee if it turns out that this location is not a very good one, just on the engineering side of that is not getting a lot of water, that I anticipate EGLE will be requesting, but I anticipate Gelman also suggesting, hey, let's go ahead and put one of the third well that's required in one of these alternate potential phase 2 locations. So like I said, these are up and running, and you can go into the database and or the monthly lab reports and get the concentrations that are in these wells. That's the required extraction that is extraction area that is part of the response activity order. The other part that is required in the response activity order is the phytoremediation area. And that area where they're doing phytoremediation is in the former pond area right here, and the marshy area right here is where they're going to be doing the phytoremediation. The former pond area, they have initiated that phytoremediation activity. They started planting trees or doing the borings for the tree wells on May 24th of a couple of weeks ago. Myself and Andrea and Chris Svoboda from the Jackson district went out on May 25th and did a site visit and confirmed that they were installing these and had a walk through of the phytoremediation area. And we also observed these other new wells and just had a kind of a general site visit on the property. So I don't know how to have, they anticipated having those wells, former pond area wells here, phytoremediation, the wells installed within 2 weeks. So I would think that I haven't got the confirmation that they have done that, but they anticipated that they would be completed and then start the next phase. The tree wells basically are dug and there's a sleeve put in, so they kind of, and then the trees are put in. So the wells kind of train, the trees or the roots have to go out into the groundwater area, contaminated groundwater area. And what they're trying to do is not only uptake some contaminated groundwater, but dewater, lower the groundwater in that area to allow a buffer or a zone of a zone of low permeability that's located in there to act as a kind of a liner and not allow any contaminated groundwater from going down deeper and then getting into deeper aquifers. So that has started, and I will get an update here soon on where that is. The marshy area, again, they had to wait for the phyto. They had to wait for that permit, which they just got in the beginning of May. So I don't have a date when they will start doing the start doing the work in this area. But I'm anticipating sometime here this summer. There is some more work involved. They have, because it's a marshy area, they have to lay basically track out or planks out there to get the drill rig out. And so it's a little more work intensive to do the phytoremediation in that area, but they have all the permits needed, I believe. So the only other one that I haven't been confirmed, Scioto Township has a permit, also has its own internal wetland permit. So I think I think they have issued that too, but I need to check on that.
Yeah, I believe it's been issued. Our planner
Okay.
had talked to me about it.
Okay.
I believe it's.
Rita, you had your hand up here?
Well, Dan, I still had some questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I just
This is a
want
good time. I'm taking a breath here, so good time for questions.
Yeah. How many trees approximately have been planted?
As I think the borings, there was, I believe, approximately 40 borings in this area.
Okay.
So I don't, off the top of my head, I don't remember what I was told in the proposed area up here.
Okay.
So, again, the borings and the sleeves are put in, and whether the trees are there yet, or they had to wait for some settling. They had to get the tree well in place before the actual tree went in. So I'll try to get an update for the next meeting of, our trees being planted or what's the status. But the biggest issue is the drilling and putting the tree well sleeves in.
So are you saying the trees haven't actually gone in?
I don't think so. I think they had to, they had to put the actual physical, drill the boring. It's a larger diameter, started out with 48-inch diameter borings and went down to 24-inch. And then there's a sleeve that goes inside. And so they also then have to allow the outside of the borings to kind of settle, and so they get everything in place before they do the trees. So I can't say for sure that the trees have been put into the borings, but that's the next step, and I'll get an update for next meeting.
Okay, and then in terms of the vapor extraction.
Okay.
Nothing has happened with that, as
well,
I understand it.
Well, I do have. Rita, did you have anything on the phyto question before I move on?
Yeah. What are the tree species?
It's a hybrid poplar. Oh, is one of them. And so that's what's going in the most of the trees is that they may have some another variety, and I'd have to check on that. Right. I do want to point out that a work plan was not required to be submitted by Gelman to EGLE for approval on the phytoremediation. It was, as a liable party, they can self-implement the actual technology. The phytoremediation was a requirement in the response activity order, but a work plan was not a requirement to be submitted for review to EGLE. What is required to be submitted to EGLE on all of these locations is what I'm going to call an as-built report. So all of these locations will have a report to us of where borings went in, how many tree wells, how many trees, where they were, any of the technical information required for completing that remediation activity. So that will be done after everything is installed. So I don't have a lot of upfront information of where were things proposed other than general locations. But again, we went out on a site visit. I confirmed that they were doing this, and watched them do a couple of the tree wells, the actual wells and the installation of the sleeves. Confirmed that these wells were, installed and part of the system now.
And just two more other questions. Do you know what the size of the trees they plan to put in? The diameter of the stem?
No, I do not. I off the top of my head, they may have verbally told me, but I don't recall. Okay. So I'll gather with these questions. I'll get that information. Yeah. I'll ask them, and for the next card meeting, I can give a little more detailed update.
Okay. And the last one is, are there trees there existing at the moment where the borings are being placed?
No, as you can see here, the actual this area is, is not really, doesn't have any vegetation other than this one area. It's pretty, there's a fence line here, and it's pretty, there's trees in the marshy as you move toward the marshy areas, but they're not impacting that. This is a different property. So, and then in the marshy area, when they install, again, it's more marshy species, so not a lot of trees. And so that's what the status is.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Glenn, you had your hand up related to any phytoremediation question?
Yeah, Dan, is there a plan for monitoring the efficacy of the phytoremediation?
A plan of there's a plan to, when you mean
how are we going to know it's working?
Okay, well, what is, again, the actual phytoremediation is going to be used to lower the water table lower the water table. So those types of measurements will be taken. And then there are monitoring wells. There are again these extraction wells. Analytical data, analytical samplings for 1,4-dioxane are taken in, and some of the exterior, the monitoring wells on site as part of the Gelman site remediation, the overall project. So the physical measurements here are going to be more water level related. Is it working? Is it lowering the water table? We will then evaluate that and then see, make an evaluation of okay, is the FIDO doing what Gelman proposed that it should do, and we'll take a look at that at some time in the future. Okay, and then the other area that is going to be the heated soil vapor extraction area is this former burn pit area. That's Kathy was asking questions about that, and basically this is that area. With this is the water tower and some of the other buildings in that area, and this location here is where the soil vapor extraction system will be installed. They have started that installation in the sense that there are major utilities related to the water tower and gas line, major gas line. So they have dug this all up, all the asphalt and concrete. And I can confirm that during our site visit. And then they are in the process of moving utilities related in this area and doing test pits and utility clearance in this area. And then after that is all done, then they will install the actual soil vapor extraction wells. And it's a heated soil vapor extraction system. It's not just basically extracting existing soil vapor. They will sparge down heated air and into the shallow soil, into the soil system, and then extract that heated air that strips off dioxane, and extract that with other wells, and then treat it if needed. Treat it. They will have to evaluate for an air permit. Treat it above ground and discharge it under an air permit if necessary. So they have started this. Like I said, are in the process of moving utilities. I've been told that they're hoping to install the borings and the pipelines to connect everything in July. Start that sometime in July. And then after that heated vapor extraction system is done, they will then also cap this area with an impervious cap. And not only this area, but also this green area is they will also cap, as part of a final part of the remediation tasks here to not allow infiltration of any precipitation to go down through any residual contamination left in the soil.
So I would note that we're running a little long. So
okay.
I'm just noting that I'm not.
I'm at the end of the activities, on the on-site response activity. So we can, unless there's questions, we can move on to the next bullet on the agenda.
So were you going to touch on the homeowner well sampling?
I didn't, if Jenny was here, I was going to let her do that. I didn't see, I can't tell. Is Jenny?
Yep, I'm happy to do that update, but we are getting close to noon. So if others would rather hear from EPA first, I'm happy to defer.
And Dan, if you're done with this section, you can stop sharing your screen. I can go back.
Oh, I'm sorry, Roger. Yes, I will. Stop share. Okay. Did it stop share?
It did.
Okay.
I'm going to take the suggestion and we're going to turn this over to the EPA representative, Ms. Inez. Did you have anything to say?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, sorry for the delay. Misunderstanding with vacation times of when the meeting was on. Have you received an update on the SI earlier today? No?
No.
Okay,
feel free to-
so I'll just cover that quickly. So far, we still have Weston Solutions is the contractor that is working for us. They're putting together a work plan, a site-specific sampling plan is the name of it. And they submitted it. We revised, EPA revised. We also got comments from EGLE. We got a second submission, and that is currently under a quality assurance group. And this has caused a little more delay than we expected because we're not using our regular contractor, which would have been Tetra Tech, and we had to use basically another contractor that is based in Region 10. And so the review of the quality assurance project planner and sampling analytical plan is being just reviewed by a quality assurance group. Then the other thing that is happening is that our consultants and we got together with our attorneys. We have been able to approach Gelman to request access. They have responded saying that they're going to cooperate with access. You know, a little bit of pushback, but we're still in that trying to get the right date that will not impede or delay any of the work that they're doing. As you heard from Dan, they're working there right now, and you know, our work and our sampling at the site will not in any way delay what they're doing for the consent judgment. So that's where we are now. We expect to be able to sample later this summer. Until we have the comments from our quality assurance group, we have the revisions from Gelman. We have the revisions from Weston. I can't tell you exactly when we're going to be sampling. I'm sorry, we got a question there and I'm trying to see it. So the question is the new contractor Weston using any of their earlier work for the Hamel site to GSI Work sampling? So we use all the available data to determine where we're going to sample. There is some data out there that we still do not have, and we are in the process of requesting. Right now, we're concentrating on getting access to be able to sample. And just to kind of clarify the purpose again of our sampling, just very simply, we want to confirm contamination on site, and then we want to confirm contamination outside of the site. And if you think in those terms, you see that the sampling that we need to do, we want current information, either we take it or we use current information that has been already acquired recently. But again, you confirm contamination on site on the source, and then you confirm contamination outside of the source, and then you try to decide, you try to calculate how many, the targets or the population being exposed, being that people or being that environment. So again, our sampling is very, very simplified for NPL listing. Other than that, I think you've heard that Diane Russell is on leave. I think she will be in headquarters until September 30th, and then she'll be back. In the meanwhile, EPA will assign a new community involvement coordinator to be able to be the kind of contact for EPA in the coming future.
So thank you, and convey our regards to Diane. And are there any questions of the EPA at this time? I want you to know how much we appreciate your attendance at these meetings and the work that you're doing. Go ahead, Kathy Griswold.
Yeah, I just want to mention again how concern the community is with any dioxane tainted water discharged into the first sister lake. That was extremely upsetting to the community, and the local political entities did not vote for the fourth CJ, and that was the primary reason. So you're probably already aware of that, but I just wanted to state it one more time.
Thank you. I made another note on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's a pleasure being here. And yeah, if you have any other questions, just let me know.
Okay, thanks again. So I'm going to return to our agenda, and I think Jennifer was going to talk about the well sampling update.
So the county is contracted by EGLE to sample the residential wells in the area of the plume. So in April, we did our first round of sampling. There was 21 samples collected. I have to apologize. The results had come in like an hour before the last card meeting, and I reported out that there were no new detections, but that was incorrect. There was one new detection of 0.9 parts per billion. So this is the first set of sample results that we got with the lower reporting limit from EGLE. EGLE's laboratory of 0.5 instead of 1 part per billion. So we had 5 detections ranging from 0.9 to 2.4 parts per billion. The 0.9 again was the new detection. So previously it probably was reported as non-detect because it hadn't been at 1 or greater. Also to note is that the lab previously rounded to 3 decimal places, which would have been like 0.001 or 0.002. So they basically were rounding to whole numbers if you move the decimal place over 3 to go from parts per million to parts per billion. Therefore, the new result at the 2.4, while it looks like the highest ever at that sampling address, could have been that high in the past. We just don't know because a 2.4 would have been rounded down to 0.002 and looked like 2 parts per billion. So just something to note with the previous way the results were reported. So again, out of those 21 samples, we had results of 0.9 to 2.4. And then we went out and sampled this week. We're sampling again to do the remaining 165 sampling locations. So far, we've done the first half of those. We got most of the samples collected. We had 1 property decline sampling, and then there was 4 others that we were unable, water was shut off. We were not able to get samples from, and we're collecting another 77 tomorrow on Wednesday. To go with the EGLE's lab lower reporting limit, their reporting limit again is now 0.5 parts per billion. Ann Arbor Technical Services, the local laboratory on South Wagner Road that many residents like to use, has revised their reporting limit. So they are now down to 0.3 parts per billion from the previous 1 part per billion. So that's another option for residents outside of this sampling area to be sampled. And find my another email. There's a new lab where you can get 522 testing. So Patti Benson had reached out. She had been speaking with Pace Analytical, who is not accepting resident samples from method 522, but I guess the rep mentioned to her to look into a laboratory called Simple Lab. So you have to go online to Simple Lab, and they have an option for dioxane testing. And if you specify that you want it with method 522, they will ship the kit to Pace to be sampled with method 522. So essentially, you order the sampling kit from Simple Lab. The fee is $155 and includes your shipping, and send the whole kit back to Simple Lab. But then if, and this is the caveat, you have to specify that you want method 522 in the notes, or it will default to method 8260 in the 1 part per billion reporting limit. But if you just specify that, they will then send the kit to Pace Analytical for testing. So all of that sampling information with the lower reporting limits and the links have been included on the county's dioxane pages and the card page, web page too, if you have more questions.
Are there any questions of Ms. Com? Then moving along, are there any reports on the NPDES permits? Oh, go ahead.
Chair.
Rita. Go ahead, Rita.
Just a very quick question. You rattled off several numbers of wells that are being tested. Could you just summarize how many wells is the county testing?
This round of sampling, we have 165 homes to test. We've already done 21.
And you've done 21. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Dan, did you say something? I mean, Dan Bicknell. I'm hearing things. Okay. So then moving on to the NPDES permits. Does anyone have anything to say on that?
Yeah, I have an update. There has been some movement with our water resources on the NPDES renewal process. They have indicated that they are going to have completed or almost completed their renewal review. And then the next step then is to give their comments, the draft permit to Gelman for review. And they hope to do that here in end of June, early July. And then the next process is they negotiate or they communicate and review that draft permit with Gelman. And after that is completed, that's when the draft permit will be made available for public review and public comment. And like I've said in the past, and I believe they've committed several years ago or a year and a half ago when they attended the CARD meeting, that they likely, because of the interest, will have a public meeting as part of that public review of the draft permit. So they have moved a step closer, and anticipating that the draft permit will be submitted to Gelman, which is the next step here, in the next within the next month. As far as the other NPDES activity is the NPDES for the Park Lake extraction well, the first sister lake discharge of treated water. Gelman has not submitted that permit request to EGLE, to WRD yet. They had informed me in informal meetings, that I have weekly, that they were very close. They had to gather some information, and they had said that they were trying to hit here end of May, early June. So that has not been submitted yet, but that's the next step under the response activity order for the process of the Park Lake extraction well. Again, the public will have a review, can make comments once they submit that, and once it goes into public comment period, and this is where you will be able to identify your displeasure or not wanting to have that discharge into the first sister lake. But it's required under the response activity order, so I anticipate that Gelman will submit the permit soon.
Okay, so Rita, you still have your hand up. Do you have a question on this? Okay, go ahead, James.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Just a quick question to Mr. Hamel. You mentioned that this goes to Gelman regarding the renewal. This goes to Gelman for review. And then, of course, the commentary afterwards. I'm putting you in a tough spot, and you probably can't answer it, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you have a estimation in terms of the timetable once it gets past Gelman?
No, that's a different program. I'm really uncomfortable. I want to manage expectations and not say something I really don't. Sure. So I would, all I wanted to present is, hey, they moved the next step closer, and that's the process for not just Gelman, that's everybody's. Sure. So I can't really say what would be the time frame once they start give it back to Gelman and start talking to them about it.
All right. Well, Dan, appreciate it, and thanks for this.
Yep. Go ahead, Ralph.
I would like to ask a follow-up question. regarding EGLE's position, if you have one, or what you've thought about, assuming the first Sister Lake new application doesn't get approved, which I think would be the hope of pretty much all the residents who commented on the RAO when it was first being proposed as CJ4. That means that the actual, one of the major extraction sites would not be operating, because Gelman doesn't have to do that. What's your position? Because that was really the rationale for the entire attempted approval of the CJ4 back then, was that we'd have this great new extraction well, which, if that permit doesn't get approved, won't happen. What are you intending to do, if anything, to get an equivalent amount of dioxane extracted from the ground in that area?
Ralph,
I'm gonna take that one, Dan.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we're not gonna opine again on what may or may not happen. We're gonna let the process play out. Again, I mean, the order speaks for itself. If they don't get the permit, they're not required to put the purge well in. So we would have to enter a different type of negotiations or talks with Gelman. But at this time, we don't know what that would look like. So we're not going to opine on that.
The Rose well will go in. It's required to go in. That extraction from that hotspot will start. So we will be, and there'll be monitoring of just for the monitoring wells. We will start taking a look at, concentration trends, as we regulate the site, as we always do. So.
Okay, then. Any other questions on this matter? With, I think, a minute left, we're going to turn it over to our card chair for his update.
Sorry.
Jack, just before you go there,
Sure.
Jenny, where was the house that had new detection? On what street?
On Elizabeth. I'm sorry, I should have clarified. All the samples collected in April were on Elizabeth, and then also that daycare center on Dexter, Ann Arbor. So it was
Thank
a new
you.
home on Dexter.
Thank you very much.
Or Elizabeth. So sorry.
Elizabeth, right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
All righty. Go ahead, Vince.
I just want to ask Eagle's opinion if the state, or not the state, if the county and the city both rejected Gelman's request to use the Allen's Creek drain as a conduit to the river, what standing do we have? Who has the higher standing with regard to that? And is this local control issue? Can, Ann Arbor and Washoe County just step aside and let somebody else decide? How does that work?
Well, the permit holder, the MS4 permit holder, is the Washoe County Resources Commissioner. So they, under the MS4 program, they would be the one to enforce the MS4 violation. So EGLE WRD assists them with, under the MS4 program, but WRD issues the permit to Washtenaw County. So they have that, that control. So EGLE doesn't, the state doesn't have that control. It's, the enforcement control is in the hands of the permit holder.
So the state would not override local opinion on how this should play out as far as contaminating our Allen's Creek watershed?
I'm not sure about the override, what you're meaning, but it would follow the MS4 process. The state is not the enforcement, the regulator for that. It's the permit holder.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, as I understand it, it's a federal program delegated to Water Resources Division. Washtenaw County holds the permit, so we enforce against the permit holder, and the permit holder enforce against the person that's doing the illicit discharge. And so we try to work together to make it all work out. And in accordance with the law, but at the end of the day, if the state thought there was still a violation of MS4, the violation would be against the permit holder, and then the permit holder, as Dan said, enforces against the illicit discharge user.
Yes,
Party.
well, yeah, I think we need to expedite any effort as this is, moving through the city into neighborhoods and into basements potentially.
Well, again,
And
our
also-
response
also
to their plan is
contaminating
going to
the
address
creek.
both.
Yeah, yeah, all right.
We're going to respond to both.
Just trying to get some clarification. Thank you.
Righty then. Go ahead, Roger.
All right, well, my time has already been taken up by others, so I'm gonna talk for another half hour. And those that are really interested in finding out some card perspectives on this the last few months should stay on. So it'll be in the video too, if you want to review it later. But let me start off by saying I appreciate what EGLE has done this time. And I would encourage other people who have items to cover in the agenda to be prepared like Dan was this time, to share his screen, because it was much more informative to have him point to things on his maps than it was for me to try to keep up with it using a Google Earth display or whatever. So I'm talking to the people at the county, when you have some new sampling, be prepared to share your sampling locations and results at the next quarterly meeting at least. And what I'm going to try to do is go through a little summary of what I've observed as chair of CARD and chair of Sire Residents for Safe Water over the last 2 or 3 months. So I'm going to find my new share here. It's still on my screen. And I think I'll just share screen 1, which will start off being, I'm sorry, not share. I don't want to share screen 1. I want to share screen 2. New share screen 2. And we'll go to hold on a second. I really need another screen. So let me stop the share here so I can find what I'm looking for. And then do a share. So this is the my notes from last month, and I just want to follow up on some things that have happened since. The new EGLE website has some issues that we're discussing, and I have some a web page that goes over some of the feedback on that. So here are some things that I've noted about the new EGLE website that anybody can weigh in on and add their own comments to. But one of them is that the way the website does searches is a little rudimentary, and it's really hard to find things. And like I pointed out earlier, the the way that it, let's see where to go. Stop the share and start it over. That'd be easier. I've taken the data was on the documents that were on the EGLE website and put them into a single spreadsheet. So if people want to get to it more quickly rather than searching by 100 or 10 at a time, you can look at the whole list of all 1,200 documents that are there. I will point out that this doesn't include all the documents that were on the previous EGLE document list. These are just the documents that have links. Are you seeing this list on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a prior list that shows the actual month, day, and year of documents that's easier to glom onto, and you can also see the documents that weren't scanned yet. So ideally, all of the previous documents that are in the record for the Gelman site would be scanned and available. It turns out the EPA preliminary analysis did a lot of that scanning, and it's in their appendixes. But again, the order in which they appear in that appendix weren't that usable. So there's a similar reordering of that we did for CARD. So you can find documents in chronological order from that analysis as well. So that's part of what CARD does, is it tries to make all the information more accessible to all of the decision makers, all the stakeholders, all of the public. So let me stop the share there and find the next thing I want to share. Similarly, the Rockworks Modeling has some issues that we've had a meeting with. I had a meeting with the Rockworks team at EGLE, and we covered some of the initial issues with datas and data errors. I'm still waiting to see how some of those issues are going to be resolved. For instance, we know there are some serious data errors with the 2020 data that's there that really need to be corrected, that may affect EPA's view of how accurate the data is. But we would like the EGLE data to be at least as accurate as the Gelman data, is the bottom line there. So there's a number of issues that I pointed out that these are ongoing things to be dealt with. There's some to-do things here that I've noted and sent to Dan and the team here just this week.
Roger, I just wanted to also, I didn't know whether you were going to say this, but we started meetings, like Roger said, meeting with him on the Rockworks model. And we plan to have quarterly meetings with Roger Carr, as the lead. on, you know, the interfacing with the public on that Rockworks and GIS model. So it's,
Yeah,
you know, we're going to have multiple meetings in the future.
And I'd like other people who are interested in the technical side of this to weigh in. It may not end up being a reconstitution of the CARD technical group, but that's the kind of things we have to decide. You know, there's some technical issues that we don't need to go over in the main CARD meetings, but that will affect the decisions that are made as part of the main CARD meetings. So I'd like to get the standard operating procedures in place so that things work well into the future, because as everybody knows, this is going to be a many decades cleanup. And right now, the reality is not being reflected in the data. Some of the data is departing from reality. And we'd like to keep it on track so that when people are looking at the data, they know that's, you know, good data. So that's part of my mantra, is that, you know, when you have a long-term cleanup site like this, you have to have the due diligence to match the scale of the cleanup. Let me go to another item here. I've already talked about the issues with some of the new monitoring and purge wells that we had some concerns about, and continue to make those observations. Finally, I just want to say that SRSW and CARD will not be at the Mayor's Green Fair this Friday because of scheduling conflicts. Instead, we're going to ask people to go to SRSW to see some of the concerns that would be presented had we been doing it in person. We didn't have enough volunteers this year to staff the CARD SRSW booth at the new Green Fair location in Library Lane. One of the things I asked the Parks Department is have they considered moving that to a different day so that it doesn't conflict with the beginning of the Ann Arbor Summer Festival, you know, so that we can reach more people. You know, maybe make it in conjunction with that so there'd be even more people we could reach, but that's not going to happen this year. So if anybody's planning on seeing a SRSW card table at the Green Fair, sorry to say, we're not going to have that this year. You can talk it up, and I'm certainly going to be talking up at the Ann Arbor Summer Festival meeting that I'm going to be going to at the same time. Finally, is anybody interested in returning to in-person meetings? I think the CARD meetings or the Zoom meetings are very good because we can share screens from different locations and give information, and it saves everybody a lot of travel time. But there might be some times that we want to get together to talk over issues, either the whole group or subgroups. And the summer's here, so we could have supplemental meetings in person to go over some specific items that we need to go over in more detail than we can get covered at a regular CARD meeting. And I think that's about all I have. Oh, I do have some visualizations here that I wanted to show. So I'm going to go back to share my Google Earth mashup. Let's see, where's my screen here again? If I do a share, then I go to Google Earth Pro and get this one out of the way. So this is the normal view that I usually have for showing things on Google Earth. But here's another alternate view. And if we say extrude up the 2001 Gelman plume map, this is the dioxane we're concerned about. This is a kind of an estimate of the volume of dioxane and where it might be heading. And by looking to the northeast on this, you probably get a better view of what is really going on. A lot of it's going east, but there's a northward component that a lot of people are concerned about, and we've, especially since SIO has now found these samples, including 1 part per billion, more than 1/6 of a mile north of where the edge of the plume is presumed to be. And this is more than halfway to my house, which is right here. So it's important that we pay attention to this, and I'm going to be using this view for a lot of my presentations in the future. So you can see, for instance, how that's compared over time. So right now I'm going to do a new share. And find the screen I'm interested in looking at. I think it's this one. So now you should be seeing a similar view, I think. Of course, there, go over here. Are you seeing my cursor move on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the same 2021 view that I was just showing you on Google Earth. This is what it was in 1995. Here's what it is in 2021. So what is that? 26 years later? 26 years later, after 26 years of cleanup, we went from this to this. And of course, the yellow part is our estimate of where the plume really is. And since that hasn't been adjusted for these new SIO hits, you can look at these yellow bullseyes and say, well, that's really where dioxin really is too. And there may be a way that the city's concerned about that the dioxin may travel straight to Barton Pond, but it's already on its way to Barton Pond through this tributary. This tributary here. It seems that these hits on homeowner wells near the tributary are where there's an ancestral pathway underneath the tributary that may be making its way to the Huron River and hence to Barton Pond. And of course, that's what happened here at the Western Plume. This tributary is about, when they're not pumping and dumping partially treated purge water into this tributary would be about the same flow rate as this tributary, according to available data. So think of this tributary as being as important as this tributary. More important because this tributary, this northern tributary, has a lot of homeowner wells nearby. Just scrolling through some of these images, I won't explain them all at this point. So these are the Township Wells that are along that tributary and along some other places where this northward component may be heading. There's a lot more Township Wells here than what's shown on some of the maps that you've seen from the state, from the county, because this data is not all available electronically. What this is, homeowner properties, parcels that we know have wells. We may not have the well information for it, but these are the homeowners that rely on water wells. And some, as you can see, those yellow dots, some of these have already been hit. So I just want people to think of this when they have to fill in mentally a lot of these, because it's not on some of the maps that are presented, certainly not by the company. So we're talking about Scioto Township and Ann Arbor Township. Now, Ann Arbor Township, they're a little farther away, but if we look at it from a different viewpoint, and by the way, that's the City of Ann Arbor right there. If we look at this from a different angle, the normal angle, and then shift the map over, we can see the Ann Arbor Township parcels. Everything that's not gray is Ann Arbor Township. And we can see then, if we fill in the Ann Arbor Township wells, the last time we've gotten a dump from Ann Arbor Township, these are the Ann Arbor Township wells, township properties that have wells. So similar to Scioto Township, these township properties are at risk from the spreading dioxin over the decades. And these are too. Because how many of you really believe that this dioxin is going to end up in the river and not continue on along the river as it goes downstream? So I just want people to remember that. Any questions?
That was great, the when you turned it that way. I mean, a whole different perspective. And the third tributary, of course, is the Allen Creek drain that is going to be a lot higher than 280 eventually going that way too.
Well, the people have often asked, why don't they just create a pipeline to the river and discharge into that pipeline downstream from all water sources? Well, that's what they have. This is their pipeline to the river under the prohibition zone. And they keep expanding the prohibition zone every few years because it turns out the dioxin has a mind of its own. It may not go where it was predicted to go by all the experts. So they already have a pipeline to the river.
Well, but the
problem is how much of that pipeline is going to get into people's wet basement.
That's what I was going to say. It's not a contained pipe, like that the polluter should be required to build, and wherever they decide it's going to go, if it's going to go downriver, then it needs to be a big one and contained. And...
Well, it's certainly, I'll tell you, the Allen Creek drain pipeline is not big enough to handle what they have to discharge. No. So, and that's again why the city doesn't want, and the drain commissioner doesn't want their existing pipes to be used for excessive discharge. That's
just like we don't want our
normally would not go there.
Like we don't want our glacier made lake used for their discharge either.
Exactly.
You know, yeah. Common sense. So you would think.
Yeah, and they have the means. They have the means to treat it to non-detect, and then they have a lot more options of what to do with the water. But of course, that's not what the law says. But that's what they should do if they're responsible. Jim.
Roger, could I see the 1995 image again, please?
I have several.
My neighborhood was contaminated unexpectedly.
Thank you, Roger.
This is a 3D version of it because this isn't really what the 3D version looks like, because this is only up to, this key doesn't go with that image, but I think these are 100 or 200 parts, maybe 500 parts per billion. When in fact, back in 1995, they had tens of thousands of parts per billion that are not showing on the Gelman maps that we're using here. Is that what you were looking for, Jim?
Yep, thank you very much.
Yeah, and all this will be shared. Anybody else?
So Roger, that map that you showed that you're, excuse me, going to be using, is that on your website? Is that available for somebody to grab that?
Well, all these are our screen images from the Google Earth mashup, which, by the way, is now almost complete. There's a few things I'm waiting for. I'd like to see some corrections of data, but if you go to the SRSW website and download the 2021 mashup, because that's the only data that we have available for the mashup right now. So this is all data through 2021. And then there's some new structuring of that, and there's some more layers that we've added to the mashup. And I'll be adding a few more extraneous layers so that anything you see in these screen images, you can create yourself, but I'll also share these screen images that I compiled here today. And of course, they're in the video. So there's like 3 ways you can get to it.
That'd be great if someone could go to the website and see it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, unalterated, whatever.
Yeah, it'll be like a slideshow when I share.
Great. That would be great. Thanks for all that work.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of having everything on one platform with different layers, so that you can see a lot more detail than you can get if you're only dealing with a few layers here or a few layers there. Anybody that is, can use Google Earth can do their own views and their own screenshots, and all of the different layer information is compiled by SRSW for CARD.
So Roger, is it possible for you to add the Allen Creek into your Google mashup?
Oh, it's there.
Is marked? Okay.
Yeah, those are these blue lines. Now, I will say this is the city's, this is from the city's GIS site.
Okay.
Where the Allen Creek drain was at a certain point of time. It turns out that the later ones, that some of the schematics of where the Allen Creek is different from the drain commissioner, from the water resources commissioner. So I haven't resolved which one is accurate, or if they're both accurate and one's just depicting a bigger pipe than the other one. And some of that information is more restricted because they're worried about terrorism, people dumping stuff into the drain and affecting somebody's basement downstream. But somebody needs to have a as-built drawing of all these pipes and things that we can rely on. So when we're talking about it, we have at least some. This is a pretty good indication of it from the earlier KML file I got from the city website years ago. Anybody else? Let me go back to the agenda because we want to show. Okay, let's see, where am I here? I really do need a third screen.
While you're looking, Roger, can I propose that we do like an in-person social meeting at some point in the next?
Absolutely.
I mean, I know it's summertime and a lot of people are gone, but we could try.
Yeah, it would have been nice if we could have rented a pavilion at the summer festival. And then, had our own green fair, if you will, right there. And inform people about what's going on.
Yeah, it's a horrible week. It's the last week of school. There's lots of graduation parties. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we don't have to do it right away because we're going to be busy and
Yeah.
summer.
No, I meant the green fair.
It'd be great if it were outdoors.
Yeah.
We in Michigan have to work really fast in the summer because we got to put in 9 months worth of stuff into 3 months.
True. Well, I'll work on a date and planning something and get it out to everybody. But I think we definitely have more participation on Zoom. As much as I like going to in person, sort of.
Yeah, where are you going to meet? Have 30 or more people meet?
I know.
You know, just the parking itself would be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody have any non-agenda items? I'll turn it back to Jack for this.
I think that we're just going to note the next meeting is on Tuesday, July 5th at 6 p.m. I look forward to beer drinking opportunities quite aside from our Zoom meetings. I really do like the fact that attendance is so easy, and we do actually get better participation from the government entities when we meet by Zoom. So I wouldn't mind if for the foreseeable future we continue to Zoom and look for other opportunities to conspire among ourselves.
And SRSW is prepared to continue hosting these. The renewal for Zoom, $150 a year is coming up, and SRSW will absorb that. So if anybody wants to make a small donation, we don't want any big donations because then we'd be treated like something other than a nonprofit. So if anyone wants to make any small donations to SRSW to cover that for future renewals, fine, but we have plenty in our budget to take care of the next several years.
Thank you, Roger.
I will say regarding beer, Jack, Patti Smith is having for her book on Michigan beer is having a signing somewhere in Ipsy, I think. So if you're interested in all things Michigan beer, that's the one to go to.
Alrighty. Go ahead, Kathy.
Regarding the summer festival, I know that at least one prior year, the tent was available on July 4th. That's one day before the July meeting. And July 4th, maybe a lot of people would be out of town, but I could ask about that if anyone's interested.
Well, but Patti, that's kind of a problematic, like you say, because people are out of town and people are busy. Family. I would not try to step on a holiday.
So,
but thanks.
Okay, it could just be an opportunity for Jack to drink.
Yeah.
I think Jack probably has other opportunities to do that.
As I recall, everybody owes me a beer, from the pandemic period. So yes, I'll be collecting soon. But I'm going to conclude this meeting at this point in time because I've run out of coffee. So
I ran out of coffee and tea and water a long time ago.
All right, it's nice to see everybody, and
thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Oh, stay safe.
Yes. Happy summer.
Stay on for anybody that wants to chat some more. I'll stop the recording.
Thanks.